All right, so we're going to be talking about the fishing report at Comins Lake. And if you are interested in increasing your success rate while fishing at this lake, then definitely make sure you watch all the way to the end of the video so you maximize some of the secret bonus tips we'll be giving at the end. So, in case you don't know who I am though, my name is Davin Sundvick with The Catch Today. And my wife and I just went fishing at Comins Lake for 3 days, and you can see some of those other videos on our YouTube channel. Make sure you give us a like and a subscribe in case you want to see more content like this about fishing in Nevada and near Las Vegas. So, before we get into the main content, I'll give you a little bit of an overview. We're going to be talking about the types of fish that we caught, the lures that we caught them on, and the locations in the lakes. And then, like I said, we got a couple of bonus tips at the end. So, the fish that we caught were bass, pike, and trout. We caught all 3 fish on both of the lures that we used. Now, the first lure that we used was the Thomas Point. It's a little red and silver lure that looks just like this, and it just kind of flutters through the water. This is mostly for trout. We caught a wide range of trout on this lure, so that was good. We caught some bass, and we even caught a pike, and we noticed that the pike were hanging around usually where we were catching trout at. So if you're catching trout, you're definitely going to find pike in the lake. And if you do catch a pike, make sure you kill them. They do have a kill policy at the lake because pike are an invasive species in Nevada. They are not native to our state. So moving on to the other lure that we used a Wacky Worm that was hooked in a weedless style without a weight. This was so that it would flutter over the weeds, and if we did hit the weeds, it would just land on top and sit right on top of the weeds. The advantage of that is that you get more hookups, and the fish tend to like it a little bit better. So, and it sinks a little bit slower. So those are some of the tips that I would give you about why we fished weedless. Now, the color of the Wacky Worm is irrelevant. The reason why I say irrelevant is because I used the extra worms. So when you buy a pack of worms and you go fishing, like I fished some bass tournaments, when you end up at the end of the bass tournament, you end up usually with a couple of worms left over, and then you toss them in the bottom of your tackle box, and then they get lost there. And then eventually you consolidate them into like a big junk drawer of little Wacky Worms that you end up with. And that's pretty much what I used because the bass fishing was on fire. We caught mostly bass with the Wacky Worm, probably about 20 bass in total, and maybe about 16 of those bass were caught on the Wacky Worm. So a high percentage of bass on the Wacky Worm, but we caught a few trout, and each trout that we caught on the Wacky Worm were just absolutely enormous. So if you want to catch consistent big trout, definitely look for the areas where the trout normally hang out in, and then cast a Wacky Worm towards the trout, and you'll avoid catching some small trout. So that's like a little bonus tip for you, kind of mixed into this video. So like I said, make sure you stay for the whole video. As far as locations go, we were fishing on the south side of the lake, which is a little bit shallower, a little bit harder to access for most people. So make sure if you got a 4-wheel drive vehicle and a kayak that you head out to that south side of the lake, where you'll find some channels that are about 12 feet deep, and you'll also find some weed patches sprinkled in the lake. I fished the more sparsely weed patches, where it wasn't as dense. A lot of the denser weed patches, we noticed that the fish were actually located in between dense patches of weeds where it was a little bit more sparse. So fish the sparse weeds instead of the more densely packed weeds. That's going to help you find a lot more bass. And then the trout were in a lot of the canals, or like the little deeper areas in between the channels. So like where you had channels and weeds on either side, the trout were in a lot of those deeper channels and swimming between the channels. So hopefully this helps you catch some fish over at Comins Lake. If we didn't cover any topics or questions that you particularly had about fishing Comins Lake, make sure you comment down below because I'll include them in further videos, and I'll probably respond to your comment as well, since I try to respond to every single comment on this channel. Thank you for watching, and have a great day.